my name is Kayla and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to do an overview of the books that I read in September of 2021. Let's go! Here are the 6 books that I finished in September. My overview of the books have spoilers, so beware if you haven't read them. Before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want more book videos. The first book that I read this month was The Theory of Happily Ever After. So this book was not very good. I picked it up at a second-hand store, and I had never heard of it before. I just saw the cover and the title and I was like, oh, this looks good. And actually on Goodreads, out of all of the books I've read so far this year, it's listed as the least popular book. So there's that. So in the book, the main character is a research scientist, and she's written a book on the theory of being happy. But basically, she's in the book starting out, she's miserable after her fiance dumped her. So her 2 friends decide to take her on a singles cruise. But then it turns out that the cruise was really just to promote her book the whole time. They weren't doing it to just be like, hey, let's go have fun. They were just kind of like using it to promote her career. Like it seemed like her friends like wanted to help her to like move on with her breakup. But that wasn't the case. And honestly, I thought her friends were horrible. Their characters were just bad and they annoyed me the whole time. And then she has 2 men that she's interested in on the cruise. But her liking them and talking to them is just so awkwardly written. Like she doesn't seem like she's a woman in her 30s. Like her relationships with her friends and these 2 men both just felt like petty high school drama. The book did have some humor in it, like in the writing, and that made me feel like the book was fine. Like the sometimes humor that she used was enough to keep me like reading the book, but I don't feel like it was enough for me to like recommend others to read the book. The next book I read was Sally Rooney's new book, Beautiful World, Where Are You? So this book came out at the beginning of September, and it's about 4 adults who are navigating their love lives and they're just kind of trying to find themselves. I'm actually really happy that I gave this book a chance. I had tried to read Normal People, didn't care for it. So I decided to try this one and I actually ended up really enjoying it. I do have a video kind of covering this book, so I'm not really gonna dive into it, but I will link that video down in the description below if you wanna check it out. The third book I read this month was The Dinner List. So this is another book I hadn't heard of before I picked it up at a secondhand store, and I really enjoyed it. So the book started out a little out there. It starts with the main character showing up for a birthday dinner with people that she had listed on this dinner list. And it was a list that she had made when she was in college, and it's a list of people that alive or dead that you would want to have dinner with. So now she's 30, it's her 30th birthday dinner, and at the dinner are her best friend, her ex-boyfriend of many years, her father who has passed away, her old college professor, and Audrey Hepburn, which was a really interesting choice. Throughout the story you kind of see like why she tied her back into the dinner, but at first like when I read that I was like, why? But I guess if you're like making a list of like, oh, people, like you would put in like a celebrity that you are maybe interested in. So the story is told regarding like the past 10 years of Sabrina, the main character's life. And we alternate between the story at the dinner and then the story of her past. So at the dinner, they're reminiscing about the past and kind of talking about the last 10 years. And it felt like the story mainly focused on Sabrina and Tobias, which is her ex-boyfriend who's at the dinner, their relationships. Since they were kind of just such big parts of each other's lives throughout their entire 20s. And in those flashbacks, I loved reading about their relationships. And it was hard to read at times because they were just really not great for each other, but they also really loved each other very much, that it was hard for them to be apart from each other. But it was kind of a bit of like, the relationship just didn't work. It kind of felt complicated, and you could kind of see that like they just weren't really like meant to be together. And I was heartbroken at the end of the book, and I was shocked when I realized that it definitely was not going to be a happily ever after story. Like I just kind of assumed that they would work it out and things would be fine. So I'm finishing this book and I'm just like standing at my kitchen counter crying while I'm reading it. It just broke my heart that Sabrina and Tobias were just not right for each other. Like, you knew that they weren't right for each other when you're reading about it, but at the same time, like, you want them to be able to work it out. And we do find out that it's impossible for them to be together. I don't really want to say why, just in case you like haven't actually read the book, because it was a big surprise for me. Like, you can look it up if you really want to know. But if you have read it, you know what I'm talking about. And I was just surprised when I found it out. You realize like, oh, there's no way possible. But I did like how it ended with her finally being able to like find peace with everything that had happened in her life, and she can kind of move forward. The next book that I read was A Man Called Ove. So this book is really praised as being heartwarming, and it seems like it's universally well loved. It tells the story of a man called Ove, and Ove is pegged as a grumpy man, but I feel like he's more just kind of like quiet and a loner. So we get to see his life in the present, and then it also shows us like a series of flashbacks that show us how he was shaped into the person that he is today. So I actually tried to read this book months ago, and I could not get past the first few chapters. It was not into it. And then I tried again and I had the same problem as before. I just did not think how Ove was behaving in the beginning was humorous at all. Like, I felt like it was meant to be like, oh, haha, like what a grumpy man. But I just found it annoying. And I didn't actually start caring for the story until we started to get more like character development, and we started to get like more in depth with the story. And then kind of suddenly it was like, oh, like the story kind of clicked for me. My biggest surprise with the book was how much Ove was just like trying to commit suicide. I was not expecting that, and I was really shocked when he kept trying like multiple times and then something would prevent him from succeeding. I didn't expect the story to kind of like go in like that dark direction. And the book was just so nonchalant about it, and I was just kind of like, wait, what? Like, are we not going to kind of like talk about this? It was just so like, yep, this is what it is. So my favorite parts of the book were Ove and Sonia's relationship development. Once I realized it, they are Carl and Ellie from the movie Up. And once that was like cemented into my brain, I could not get it out. Like, to me, throughout the entirety of the book, he was Carl, and like I couldn't stop seeing it. And actually once I made that association and like that's what was in my brain, I was like, oh, I actually like this story a lot more. Overall, I didn't find the book humorous at all, but I did find it touching, and it made me cry quite a bit. I do agree with it being a heartwarming story. I don't agree with it being humorous. I didn't really find it funny, but I did find it very touching, and I actually ended up enjoying it a lot more than I thought I was going to. And it actually made me really excited to read his other works, which then I did. So then the next book that I read this month was Anxious People. So after I read Ove, I was super excited to read Anxious People, just because it also has great reviews and it's widely loved. For me though, I just couldn't get into this one. It felt like such a big letdown to me after reading A Man Called Ove. And for me at least, I think it'll be pretty forgettable. And also with this book, I didn't expect it to be, again, so heavy with the suicides and the attempted suicides. I felt like a disclaimer would have been nice. I was a bit shocked that this played such a major role in the characters and how they were connected within the story. Like, again, with A Man Called Ove, like, I don't remember ever seeing people talk about it being about that, or having that be in the story. And so for me, I was just kind of like, I was shocked. So for Anxious People, basically the book keeps kind of being like this hostage drama. So a bank robber holds people in an apartment viewing hostage after a failed bank attempt. But that's not really like what the story is about. It jumps around a lot between flashbacks and then police interviews, the time that was spent in the apartment during the hostage part, and then after the hostage part. And throughout the story, I felt like, I just felt like the author just did too many like bait and switches with the characters in the story and how they were connected and how we would just like learn like the truths of the story. And by partway through, I had just learned to expect that there would be a twist or that we would learn something different that would change what we once thought. And then when one would happen, like one of the reveals, I just felt ultimately just kind of underwhelmed because I was expecting it. So I really wanted to like this book. It just didn't do it for me, and for me, it didn't live up to the hype. The last book that I read this month was Under the Whispering Door. So this was another new book that was released this month, and I thought it was just really fabulous. Personally, it's by TJ Klune, and personally, like, I even liked it better than his other book, House in the Cerulean Sea. And actually, because of that, I have two videos covering the book, one with spoilers and one without. So if you're interested in those, I'll link those also in the comments below so you can check them out. I just felt like I couldn't stop talking about this book, and I thought it was just so wonderful, and I loved it, and I would definitely recommend it. Okay, so far this year, I have read my 52 out of 52 book goal. I finished it early and I'm super excited. I'm gonna keep going with the challenge and see how many I can get up to. I have, 3 more months to kind of keep adding to the number, so I'm super excited. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.